finishing framing was a huge milestone for me, for the project, and then wrapping up all of the major pieces of the deck framing as well was another huge thing, and now I'm actually getting stuck into planking, which is a huge milestone. Yeah. And it's one of the areas that I'm able to reuse some of the material that was put on the boat when she was refitted in Greece in the 70s, and a few pieces of her original planking as well, I think, which was originally pitch pine. Yeah, it's hugely gratifying to see her taking a shape again, which you can kind of see through the framing, but putting that skin on and like really seeing her shape emerging again after not seeing it for quite a while feels really good. I'm using a couple of different materials for planking. The top sides, which I'm using to mean sort of the top 4 strokes or so that are above the water pretty much the whole time. I'm actually using nice, clear, tight-grained Doug fir just from a lumber yard. So it's dry, it's been kiln dried, but it still steam bends really well. And my hope is that using dry material where it's going to remain dry through most of its life will be better for the boat and the whole structure in the long run. Below that level, I've actually gotten Eastern larch, which is also known as hackmatack or tamarack, and I've got about 1,500 board feet of that, which I'm hoping will do pretty much what's left. The garboards I'm hoping to do in oak, mostly because oak is one of the best materials to use when you need to steam a major shape into something. It steam bends really well, and the garboards on Rosalind do pretty close to a double 90-degree turn, which is a lot to ask of anything. So I'm hoping to get oak for that, and I already have oak for the bilge strakes, which are heavy, almost double thickness strakes right at the turn of the bilge to allow her to actually just sit over. She sits over about like a foot, maybe a little more than a foot at low tide. If the tide goes out and she's on good ground where she can dry out, she only just sits over a little bit and rests over on the bilge strakes. So oak is one of the better materials for that as well. Yeah, and then the rest is hopefully going to be this larch, and that's, while it's not the exact same subspecies of the genus Larix, it is a type of larch, and the European larches were very commonly used for planking this type of boat. So I feel like it's pretty close to being in keeping with what she would have had. For the moment, I'm working from the top down, so working from the shear line down, and I think I'm going to go about halfway before I turn around and start from the keel up and meet somewhere in the middle. And there are a number of reasons for doing things this way around. For me, a lot of it was efficiency. I had staging up all around the boat, and I wanted to do everything that would really benefit from that being in place before taking it down, so that I wasn't losing more time to taking it down and then putting it back up again and that sort of thing, which you have to try to think a few moves ahead with all that sort of thing. So I resolved to do all of the major pieces of the deck framing and the shear strake, and kind of work down from there. And yeah, for the most part, I'm following the lining off that was done when she was built. I've been pretty careful to keep marks of where the plank lines were. In some cases, I do have to change things. She, distorted and changed shape in a number of ways over the years, and some of the lining off is not as attractive as it was when she was built, I'm sure, now. So, making a few adjustments for that, but for the most part, following the original builder's aesthetic and intent, which I think is appropriate. Another one of the challenges that comes with this sort of restoration is deciding what to keep and what not to keep. And this is a very good example. This is one of Rosalind's original planks, and unlike most of them, is actually, I think, structurally fine. It still has good weight to it. It feels solid. It makes a good sound when you hit it. There's not actually a lot wrong with it, but the difficulty comes with it is below the waterline, and I have to plug all the holes that all the original fasteners went through, and the amount of oil and tar and diesel and everything that's soaked into this plank over 100 years of use, I'm not entirely sure if glue is going to stick to it. And pieces like this are one of the more difficult decisions to make. It's structurally fine, but is very old and would be, I think, really quite difficult to patch up and reuse. I don't think that glue will stick to this stuff terribly well. And there's always that back and forth between trying to preserve as much of the original fabric as you possibly can, and on the flip side, getting her in the water again and working again and being very functional and very safe. And again, as she was intended, as was intended by the original build, they weren't building these boats to be museum pieces. They were building them to be used, to be people's homes and livelihoods, and so it's difficult. It's difficult because I do want to preserve as much as I possibly can, but the choice isn't always obvious. Pumpkin!
Hey, Pumpkin the cat! Can you tell me about Pumpkin the cat?
I don't know anything about it. I just know Pumpkin the cat is the boatyard cat. I mean,
He
Pumpkin.
looks pretty rough on one ear.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a he or a she.
Yeah.
I respect.
Pumpkin is pretty gender neutral name.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's not actually its name.
Sure.
That's just what Pete called it. And it does actually belong to someone in this neighborhood, just don't know who.
Yeah.
Fierce with rodents, which is good.